it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to the beautiful, empowered, and healing harmonizers. I am excited to be back today. I haven't been able to post for a couple of days because of some very busy scheduling issues, so thank you so much for hanging in there. Hope you are having a great week, and we are going to zoom in and focus in on a great viewer comment. But before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to those of you who have recently contributed and donated to the channel. Whoop whoop, we have Australia in the house. It is so good to have your viewership, your contribution, and your donation. Great to hear from you. So thank you so much for your viewership and tuning in. And it's an honor and privilege to be able to provide this content to you, and I feel a very sorely needed niche, and that is really how to deal with pathological malignant personality disorders. Things that you see right underneath your nose that are impacting you negatively, toxically, directly in your life. And there's not a lot of tools and resources and guidance really available in one place, let alone the healthcare system. So that is really my passion, my goal and objective, and my mission here at the Peace and Harmony channel. So thank you so much for your donation. I really appreciate it. And yes, absolutely, for viewers who this channel has been a positive influence or a good resource, absolutely feel free to give back and donate to the channel. There's a little PayPal donate now button on the homepage, on the about page. So good to have you here. So we are zooming in and focusing in today on a great viewer comment. And this is really kind of coming about as a result of some of the content we've been posting here. And that's particularly looking at the malignant narcissist, the covert narcissist. Even the psychopath individuals were really kind of unbeknownst to you, underneath your radar, you're being really sort of taken advantage of. You are essentially being used or played, which becomes emotional abuse, emotional neglect, and emotional manipulation, like a psychological hijacking, which you don't realize that it's eroding away at your energy and your focus and your ability to feel good about living your life purpose, about moving forward with your life. In other words, you're always feeling like there's a snag. You can only go so far. It's the ball and chain. It's kind of holding you back. No matter how hard you try to push forward in your life, there's always this like holding back, and it gets to be a grind. And then eventually this creates a mood and a temperament. And then through time, it becomes an identity of I am held back. I can't move forward. These are quote unquote, the best years of my life, and I'm unhappy. I feel it has all resulted in a null and void. So this feeling of dealing with these takers of the world. In other words, it becomes very out of balance. So please note the descriptors that we're using here, because out of balance, out of energy, out of an awareness of living your life purpose, your life mission, these are big concepts for you on this channel when it comes to healing with very difficult people, whether we just call them malignant narcissists, covert narcissists, sociopathic, psychopathic, let's just say toxic or difficulty. We're not here to diagnose and treat, but we do know that there are some personality constructs, what they call in psychology, personality constructs or traits, which are, the grandiose people, the entitled people, the pathologically self-important people who are cold, callous. They're not really giving. They'll make it a pretense that they are giving. In other words, because you get to bask in my greatness, you should feel privileged to be with me. We're talking about these people who, just by virtue of their grandiosity, their inflated character, their, puffed up ego, which is their quote unquote facade, it becomes a scam. It becomes a con in your life. And I use these serious, strong, heavily weighted words because one thing I really have a passion for within my heart is to see people suffer at the hands of another individual in terms of, keeping them small, keeping them feeling inferior, keeping them feeling like they're around this constant belittling, chronic criticism, harsh judgment, the heavy hand of their looks, these looks that could like pierce your soul. These are the indicators that you are around a malignant individual, whether it be narcissistic, really, serious borderline, serious mood disorders. And I know we have a viewer who's asking to comment on the mood disorders. It's going to be a little bit different because generally these people are on they are on the roller coaster, and sometimes they're up, sometimes they're down. You don't know what you're going to get. Like Forrest Gump, it's like a box of chocolates. You don't know if you're going to get the delicious nougat. You don't know if you're going to get the chocolate with the toothpaste inside. You don't know if it's going to be a sour cherry. You don't know what you're going to get. So it becomes like this, sort of constantly moving target. So we are going to take that up in another video. So thank you so much for your inquiries and questions. But we're looking more now at these people who, are the nicey to your face, smiley, but then behind your back, they are stabbing you in the back. They're making rude comments. They've got the smear campaign. In other words, they're the fakies, the fake people, the facades, the people who go through life all on appearances and not on substance and on content. They're not really doing solid by you. And these are the people who are typically the narcissistic, who put through a facade, and like in the covert, it's not so much the facade, it's just that they're hiding so much. There's a quiet rage. I don't owe you nothing. All I'm going to do is take care of me, the pathologically selfish, and they end up hurting you by proxy because the guidance, because of the validation, because of the acknowledgement that they're not giving you. They don't have the time of day, etc. And if these people are in a close relationship, we're talking marriage, parental, employment, it's going to impact you, but they are cold, callous, and not caring because of this entitlement, because of this grandiosity. And when it comes to feeling that this has been difficult and it's taken a gouge out of your life, it's gouged your heart. I had a viewer who stated, I gave all, my beauty, my affection, all my energy, the best years of my life, and then how this hurts. Well, realize that the best years of your life are now, N-O-W, now o'clock, right now. It's, for you to validate that is a huge accomplishment because it is oftentimes part of the problem in dealing with these negative people or staying with these toxic people for too long or over giving, over obligating the best years of your life, all your money, all of your time, your talents. You're giving them the best gifts. You're leaving the little crumbs for yourself. Your cup is always, got, a millimeter in it, and theirs has, got, 16 ounces, 18 ounces, 22 ounces, and your cup is empty. I feel so empty. We're talking about this experience and the how, why, what, and where, why this is. We'll realize that the narcissistic people need others to validate them. They need the love. They have an insatiable need, to have this validation. They don't self-validate themselves. They don't have that mechanism within themselves. Really, the pathological people, they need always others to prop them up. They're empty inside, and so they need this constant validation from others. And as soon as they wear you out, that's when they're going to start they go through the love bombing, and then it's the devaluation and discard. So you're kind of might feeling this discarding basis, even though they're still there, especially when it's a family member where they're kind of like in either your bloodline, your immediate family, or the married in-laws. You can see this because, there's going to be this sort of, harness where they're going to be at family events or they're expected to be included. And if these are the people who are hurting you, and these are the people who, are really nice to your face, but you realize that they're not, you're giving them, but when you really look at it, you're not receiving anything. It's the guys that they're interested in you, but they don't care. It's the little quips and comments that you hear along the road. Oh, we didn't want to, invite so-and-so because, they're too old and they might make our party, detract attention from this. And they're always trying to control the outcome. We don't want to invite the grandparents because that would slow us down. That would be like a speed bump. We want this to be all about, this youth and this new person, and to have them there. Well, they're in a wheelchair. We don't want to have, our daughter who's graduating to have to see her grandparents at her graduation because, well, that might bring her stardom down. That might bring her entitlement, her, self, the limelight down. Why would she want to share it with her grandparents? Even though her grandparents might have given her money, time, attention, gifts, love, put her up on the pedestal, yet look at the treatment that is being bestowed to the people who are supportive. So it's this kind of thing where you are then, either, interlocked, and then you don't hear about this directly, but these people are being hurt. Clearly, this is not good treatment to disrespect your elders. I mean, if you look in the Japanese culture, they have reverence for their elders. There's the hot bath in the house, and it's the elderly people. That's an honorary term. It's not like elderly and decrepit. But in their culture, who I've studied, and I've also studied Japanese, is that, one thing I have reverence for about their culture is that the older generations, because of their time, wisdom, and experience, they are looked up to. So they're given, the hot water. They're given the first scoop of rice, in the, in the baths that they have in there, like they might be like wood heated. And so it's like super hot, So the eldest, the older generation gets in first. They get the hottest water. And then, other people come in. So, and they have a lot of different words to denote if you're giving something to an older person, someone your age, or a younger person, or a dog. So there's like 7 words for it to give. So it's very, very interesting how this varies from culture. So, and we are here in the United States. So once again, it's an honor and privilege to be able to have the internationals in the house, the UK, the Germany, the Turkey, the Italy, the France. It is such an honor and privilege because I think you can see the cultural relevance and how it applies to you. But we're talking about when clearly there is a hurting of others, an exploitation or a smear campaign, insultory, criticism, which these people do not deserve. And so there's this kind of crumbling, devaluing, and discarding. And so, and for you to stay there, I think a lot of the questions that people have, are trying to resolve and work through, we want to get you through this and have you feeling free and liberated, is to understand part of the problem with that trauma bond and staying, too connected to the abuse for too long. In other words, you feel, I've had to deal with this too long. Maybe if you were a youth and you were born into this, well, until you could get up on your feet, maybe you came out then into the world weak and you couldn't back yourself up. You couldn't tell them no because they were your parents or etc. But, looking at then and then how this creates a very strong blueprint, which is then repeated over time, and will play out in other dynamics, is to understand that oftentimes in the subconscious, you were staying with them for too long because you were seeking their validation and approval. For some reason, for you to get acknowledgement, validation, and approval from this person was important or significant to you. So let's take a look at that. So it is to understand that during this time, perhaps while you were, while you were involved, why you didn't, see the red flags, why you didn't acknowledge them, why you didn't hit the bricks, why you didn't hit the pavement, Why didn't you go build your life elsewhere? Why didn't you go construct your mindset into something stronger, bigger, better? Is because one of the primary incidences for you in your heart, your subconscious mind, your spirit, was because you were seeking validation or approval from this person. And you wouldn't hit it until you got that from them. You were sticking around. Maybe now, maybe later, maybe after I do this, the conditional love that keeps you stuck, the trauma bond. In other words, I'm now identifying with my abuser, and my identity is inextricably tied, and then my world is made small, because how can you go from an emotional manipulator to just a healthy self and go out, quote unquote, into the world? It's a very difficult thing. It's, when you're immature, you don't have the self-validation, the tools. In other words, you're not able to validate yourself at that point. And that doesn't mean that you're crazy. It doesn't mean that you are less than. It is a processing of the mind to have felt that way and to learn that about yourself. So you had learned, this person had trained you, conditioned you, programmed you to feel this, to dwarf you. This is very, very common in narcissistic and psychopathic dynamics. And when I say dynamics, I mean the family, I mean the workplace, I mean the community. So if you can build a bigger, house, it's like overshadowing another's, and then you suddenly dwarf another. Well, look who is King Kong on the block. Do you see how this becomes, the tools of the wealthy, the tools of the quote unquote insatiable power mongers who want to have the highest profile, who want to dwarf others. In other words, they make themselves look bigger. And this is not all the cases. Not all people who are wealthy and affluent are psychopathic or narcissistic. This is an example. So you can understand what has happened to you and to get out and away from them, so you can stomach it, so you can gut it, so you can say, whoa, I don't want to play that game anymore. I am no longer going to be a supply or a target to this. So it is, their life becomes all of a sudden a negative validation for you. If they can shut you down, make you silent. In other words, if I'm going to intimidate you through my slanderous comments, through a number of people, then I've got a number of people on my side, and here's little old you. Perhaps you're just either alone, they will isolate you, they will, make it so that it's like the pecking order. You hear like chickens, they'll just peck until you're weak. And then they'll say, ha ha ha, look how weak you are, look how strong we are. So it's a way for them to basically pound you down and then say, look how weak you are. Well, if you are, doing these inner workings in these dynamics, and what I call, it's a very pre-calculated way, where if they can, do a smear campaign with a number of people on this side, and, oh, look, we did this and this and this, and we took all these other people out to lunch while you were working. And then it's like, you just took away all my colleagues, and you did this and this while I was working. Do you see how this would be exploitative and be, a kick to the gut, a jab, to the ribs, taking your kneecaps off? How could you not, as a sentient being, feel the hurt or the regret or feel, slammed to the wall and not either fawn, freeze, or go into fight or flight, because this is perceived as an attack. So it sets you into that fight or flight mechanism, and you get into those defense mechanisms now, which is a whole very, very important topic, is to understand the roles of defense mechanisms. But do you see how this dynamic then creates the proliferation of feeling weak, feeling not knowing, feeling the confusion, feeling a fog, feeling disoriented, dehumanized, depersonalized, and then leading into the struggle perhaps, and then the staying with this person for too long because you are trying to make sense of it. And then oftentimes it's because one does not know how to cope, manage, or understand these people. It's like you just keep going back for abuse. And you're like, then you question yourself, why am I a glutton for punishment? So it is to understand, and we're going to wrap up here in just a minute, that it is not you that is weak or needy or clingy or anxious or depressed. It is a culmination of this emotional abuse with these people who will exploit the normal, the healthy, and try to dismantle your feeling of self-esteem. See, that's how it's like a emotional hacking. You know, you hear about people trying to hack into other computers, and this is not good, you know, to be emotionally hacked into, and then exploitation of your needs, which is the need to belong, the need for validation, acknowledgement, love, hugs, kisses, inclusion, belonging. I mean, this is normal. But if you try to seek this with the unhealthy, I don't care if they look normal, I don't care if they look healthy, I don't care if they wear a 3-piece suit, a silk dress, stiletto heels, Italian leather, crocodile boots, they've got, you know, the slickest hair, they've got the grooviest haircut. I don't care, and they have a posse of so many, but if they hurt and exploit, they're no winner to me. I don't care if they have a paved driveway a quarter of a mile long, they live on, you know, a 3-acre lot with, you know, trees and everything like that. If they exploit others, they are no winner to me. To me, that's where they draw the line. And this, yes, but they get away. You know, one thing a lot of viewers say is they get away with this. They get away with that. They are so good. They snake their way through. It's because people oftentimes are afraid to stand up to them, including perhaps yourself. But now, with time, knowledge, and experience, can you not see where standing up for yourself, standing, even vocalizing for yourself, if not the internal dialogue, the inner, what we call the self, you know, the self-talk, the internal language needs to be created. So if you have not created that, that's part of the tools of this channel, is the astromations, is to be able to open up that inner dialogue. And sometimes, you know, you might need to confront them, you know, and say, hey, you know, FYI, you know, did you know? And then they're doing this. And sometimes you do need to confront, but to enter into the boxing ring with these people is to commit to struggle and losing a lot of energy. So why would you want to stay and try to battle it out unless it's really significant and important for you? So, you know, it is to understand that this often is a learned state around these people. So if you're trying to get an experience of belonging, fitting in, validation, acknowledgement, and get the love from these types of people, it ain't going there. I mean, their transmission ain't working to help, you know, to interact with you. They're going to constantly have this insatiable, and then you don't want to stick around to see what other crazy, baffling things that they do, whether it's their emotional conquest, their physical conquest, their monetary conquest. Who wants to stick around to be made and ground down smaller, to hear about, you know, how this and this, you know, no, thank you. You know, I am not interested. You know, it is not interesting to me. Like a lot of viewers say, you know, I have been stuck for so long. It is, I call it an emotional Gabbers block. You're just like, I cannot believe it. You hit the fawn mode, you hit the freeze mode, you hit the fight or flight, and you just keep taking the abuse. But eventually the pain is great enough that you're like, whoa, you know, this ain't right. Like, I've been married, this is my family member, they just did this. Like, you know, all of a sudden you find yourself trying to be an emotional policing a situation. And when you get to a certain point, you know, you just need to walk away. Your belonging, your validation, if it's caught up in this, you are going to set yourself up for trials, tribulations, struggle, hurt. You know, if you're trying to conquer that, oftentimes it's better to say this is not conquerable and I'm going to let that go. And you might feel hurt. It's not fair. Why me? Woe is me. Here comes the pity party. Pour me a glass of pity. It is, but it's more important to realize that these are the people, not only that you will not get validation from, you will not get the love from, you will not get a feeling of belonging. You're going to get the shock and awe of like, OMG, you just said that, you just did that. These are the cruel, cold, callous people. Even though on the outside they might look warm, fuzzy, or they have a lot of this, that, or the other thing, let them go. And as a viewer had stated, and I state this also, when a person shows you who they are, believe them. When a person shows you who they are, believe them. So in your lessons learned, I want you to write this down. And so that you don't forget and forgive so many times that you're just going back for this, that. And I apologize. Thank you so much for the viewers who are like, you got your collar off. And I apologize. I've got the Vaseline there, so forgive me if it looks like radically gross. But I got to be able to heal this baby over here. And it is painful in this neck area. But we are pressing onward. We are perseverance and tenacity here. So as we were saying, if you are seeking this from them, you are going to end up angrier and angrier at yourself, because eventually you have to hold yourself accountable for what you interact and base your time with. Your time on this earth plane is precious. I just went through months of recovery. It ain't getting easier. So you to throw your time and energy away to these people, if you do not write your lessons learned, when people show you who they are, believe them. It is the denial and it is wanting to soften the blow and not want to go through the emotional pain that keeps you stuck in these type of patterns of relationships of thinking, feeling, and relating for years on end, because it hurts. It's not a scar. Yes, this baby hurt. Yes, it hurts here. Yes, it hurts in my back. Yes, it's really tight, and etc. It hurts, okay? And it's because you want to avoid the hurt, because you don't know what tools, resources. That's why we're here. Because there's a need here, and people suffer for years and decades on end, and i.e. Peace and Harmony is creating the channel for you people to get results, so you're not stuck for years and decades wallowing in unhappiness, wondering, confusion, etc. The gaslit stage, the brainwashing. You can't walk up to your doctor, I'm feeling this, and they're like, you've got 5 minutes, and we got to do this and this. Like, you don't get the time of day to work through this. So that's why we're here. But it is to understand the truths of where you draw your line, as I call it, your boundary and your standard, not the BS. You can take the BS, you can take the hit, you can take the punches, you can take then the self-remorse, the self-regret, and dig yourself a deeper hole. Say that 10 times fast. You can dig yourself a deeper emotional hole, get in even deeper, make the cut even more profound, the emotional hurt even greater, in absorbing more of your time, energy, and experience. Or you can create the boundary and standards. This is where I draw the line, and this is what my standards. If you are not within that, sorry, but you are out of luck. Like I am. You have to then enforce it. And that, I think, is the internal dialogue that needs to be created, that we're setting up here in the tools within this channel. And yes, I am working on a website and my book. Yes to all of those. And no, I don't do Facebook. That is not my platform. So I apologize if a lot of you Facebookies, but I ain't doing it there. So for you to understand that, and calling these people out to yourself, and then, whether you need to call it out to other people is for you to determine. And sometimes that can be very relieving if you then confront them. Hey, FYI, did you know so-and-so said this, did this? I just need to get that off my chest. And not make it a point of contention where you're then struggling, for the next several years. He said, she said. You don't want to get into the tit for tat. Sometimes it's very good and healthy to stand up for yourself and make that declaration. So if you're one of those people, you will know, I am not tolerating this behavior. Period. End of story. I will not. And then your actions need to speak louder than your words. You don't need to get into this mishmash waffle. I'm going to lay it on with some relish. I'm going to syrup it up. I'm going to do this and that. You're then exhausted. Nope. Sorry. Ain't got time for that. If you need to make a declaration, though, that, this enough is enough. I'm done being scapegoated. I'm done with having all your negativity. I'm done with your toxic comments. I'm done. And you don't have to give them commands like, oh, do that to somebody else. You don't have to worry about them, because if you do, then you are going to be you're giving attention to them. You're still staying in the relationship. Do you see where then it is important to emerge and evolve from that relationship? Even if they're beautiful, rich, wealthy, handsome, attractive, yada, 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 all the excuses. If you can also, kind of look at your excuses and say, ask yourself and put on the title of your next page in your recovery journal, what are my excuses for maintaining this pain? What are my excuses for maintaining and tolerating this abuse? What were my excuses? I.e., what happened? You can do this now in the privacy of this video. I was too young. I was financially dependent. People would think I was crazy if I left this person. Oh, but the weekends were so good. The Thursday nights were so good. What are your excuses? I was committed. I thought that this was what love was. What are your excuses? So if you can become and really get those out. So oftentimes these are beyond your conscious awareness. So you need to flush these out. You need to ask yourself these questions. Once you can peel back the veil, we need to confront it. We need to look at it head on. You need to just say, this is what it is, and we can do this together. You are not alone. You are not to be shamed for coming up with this awareness. You are right. Stop doubting your perceptions. The narcissist and the psychopath, they are kings and queens of having you doubt your perceptions. Do not doubt your gut feelings. If your gut is crying out loud, OMG, I am over-obligating to this person. OMG, I'm taking too much. OMG, I'm tolerating it again. Here we go